Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It is now 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Our Chairman and President, Dr. Lucio C. Tan, has requested yours truly, Mr. Lucio C. Tan III, Vice President of PAL Holdings, Inc., to preside over today's meeting. I therefore hereby call the annual stockholders meeting of PAL Holdings, Inc. to order. I would like to welcome all stockholders present at today's meeting. May we request our Corporate Secretary, Attorney Cecilia Pisaico, to explain why we are holding today's meeting by remote communication.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Due to the lingering effects of the pandemic and in order to ensure the safety of everyone, our meeting today is being convened via the Zoom webinar app. For the information of all present, this meeting is being recorded in accordance with the requirements of the Securities and Exchange Commission. Mr. Chairman, if I may, and for record purposes, I would like to call out the names of the directors of the corporation who are present in this meeting. We have with us today Dr. Lucio C. Tan, Mrs. Carmen K. Tan, Mr. Lucio C. Tan III, Ms. Sheila T. Pascual, Mr. Stanley K. Nang, Mr. Hunichiro Miyagawa, Mr. Johnny G. Kua, and Mr. Jerome S. Tan. Also present are the executive officers of the company, Ms. Susan Cheng Lee and Ms. Juanita Tan Lee, who are all on hand to address any inquiries that may come up at today's meeting.
May we now request our Corporate Secretary to please show proof that stockholders were duly notified of this meeting?
Mr. Chairman, in accordance with Rule 20 of the Securities and Regulation Code and in consonance with the notice of the Securities and Exchange Commission to publicly listed companies dated March 13, 2023, the notice for today's meeting was published in the business section of two newspapers of general circulation, the Philippine Star and Business Mirror, and in print and online format for 2 consecutive days on April 27 and April 28, 2023. In compliance with the requirements of the SEC, the last day of publication, which was last April 28, 2023, is at least 21 days prior to today's meeting. We have on record affidavits of publication issued by the Philippine Star and Business Mirror. Also, I would like to confirm that the notice of this meeting, together with the information statement, management report, and financial statements, were posted on the corporation's website and the corporation's PSE Edge profile. I therefore certify that the stockholders were duly notified of today's meeting.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. The next item in the agenda is the certification of the existence of a quorum. Madam Secretary, do we have a quorum for today's meeting?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, a quorum is present. According to the guidelines that we have circulated to the stockholders, the last day for registration for today's online meeting was on May 15, 2023. Based on our tally of those who successfully registered online and the validated proxies and powers of attorney on hand, the number of stockholders present and represented by proxy are shown on the screen. I therefore certify as to the existence of a quorum for the valid transaction of today's meeting.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Before we proceed, may we request our Corporate Secretary to briefly discuss, for the benefit of all those present today, the rules for the conduct of our meeting today and the voting procedure to be observed?
Mr. Chairman, the voting rights of each stockholder and the requirements and procedure for participation and voting through remote communication, as well as the guidelines, were provided under Item 19 and Annex B of the Corporation's Definitive Information Statement, which we have circulated to the stockholders. For the record, I would like to summarize the meeting protocols and voting procedures to be observed at today's meeting. First, stockholders who have completed the registration procedure on or before May 15, 2023 are allowed to participate in today's meeting and are deemed present for purposes of determining the quorum. Second, stockholders were given until May 23, 2023 to send us via email at phiwebinar@ltg.com.ph their questions regarding the items in the agenda. In the interest of time and for the orderly conduct of business, questions received on or before May 23, 2023, which we deem relevant to today's meeting, will be addressed today, while the rest of the questions and those received after the deadline will be responded to by email. Next, the matters submitted for voting at today's meeting are the following: approval of the minutes of the 2022 Annual Stockholders Meeting. B, approval of the management report and the audited financial statements. C, ratification of all acts, transactions, and resolutions by the Board of Directors and Management since the 2022 Annual Stockholders Meeting. D, the election of directors, and E, appointment of external auditor. Next, we are utilizing voting by proxy form and voting in absentia for this meeting. For this purpose, stockholders were given until May 15, 2023 to accomplish and submit their proxy forms to phi_asm@pnb.com.ph. Stockholders who have successfully registered and voting in absentia were given until May 16, 2023 to submit their voting ballot form. Validation of proxies and tabulation of votes were completed on May 19, 2023. Lastly, we wish to remind the stockholders that this meeting is being recorded in video and audio format in compliance with the requirements of the Securities and Exchange Commission.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Let us now proceed with the meeting proper. The first item in the agenda is the reading and approval of the minutes of the previous meeting of the stockholders. Our last annual stockholders meeting was held on May 26, 2022. Madam Secretary, were the stockholders apprised of this item in the agenda?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. A summary of the matters approved in the last stockholders meeting is set out under Item 15 of the information statement, which was made available to the stockholders. A copy of the minutes of the 2022 Annual Stockholders Meeting was also uploaded in the corporation's website on June 1, 2022. Since the contents of the minutes of the 2022 Stockholders Meeting have been disclosed, it is proposed that we dispense with the reading of the minutes of the 2022 Annual Stockholders Meeting held on May 26, 2022, and approve the minutes as appearing in the corporation's record.
The proposal is noted. Before we tally the votes on this item, may we inquire from the Corporate Secretary whether we received any inquiries on this matter?
Mr. Chairman, there were no questions received online regarding this matter.
Madam Secretary, may we know the tally of votes on this matter?
Mr. Chairman, we have on the screen the tally of votes and validated proxies on this matter. Based on the total votes received, more than a majority of the stockholders of the corporation present at today's meeting approved the minutes of the 2022 Annual Stockholders Meeting held on May 26, 2022.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Based on the report of the Corporate Secretary, The minutes of the 2022 Annual Stockholders Meeting held on May 26, 2022 is hereby approved. Madam Secretary, let the minutes reflect the voting on this matter. Before we move on to the next agenda, allow me to read the message from our chairman. Dear colleagues and stakeholders, I am pleased to report that our operating company, Philippine Airlines, has achieved considerable success in rebuilding services and strengthening its financial position after the crisis of the pandemic. Our economy is recovering strongly. Travel is rebounding. This has helped our airline recover and thrive. As a result, we registered a positive operating income and total comprehensive income for 2022 with similar good results for the first quarter of 2023. I thank you all for your support in making this achievement possible. I congratulate the management and workforce of PAL for a job well done. I am grateful to our customers, the flying public, for their trust and support. We face major challenges just the same. We must resolve many operational and supply problems that hinder PAL from extending the best possible service to its customers. We need to rebuild our product and our fleet. Philippine Airlines needs to be a stronger competitor and leader in service and innovation. This is imperative for a company that aims to be the airline of choice in the market it serves, which is the vision we defined for our flag carrier. Once again, I call on the support of all stakeholders of PAL Holdings Inc. for the task of surmounting these great challenges. This task will demand all our energy and skill in the years ahead. With your support, I am confident that we will build on our success and make Philippine Airlines a strong network airline serving the nation, delivering world-class service, and representing the best of the Philippines to the world. Thank you and mabuhay. We now move on to the next item in the agenda, which is the management report for the fiscal year 2022. May we request the Chief Finance Officer, Ms. Susan Cheng Lee, to report the financial results of operations for the year?
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to present to you the operating highlights of your company's consolidated financial results for the year ended December 31, 2022. Our external auditors, SyCip Gorres, Velayo & Company, issued an unqualified opinion on the consolidated financial statements for the said calendar year. For the results of operations, with the implementation of your company's financial restructuring plan and the improvement in the results of operations, your company has reported a total consolidated operating income of 17 billion pesos in 2022. This was a turnaround from last year's operating loss of 4 billion pesos. Total consolidated comprehensive income amounted to 11 billion pesos in 2022, lower than last year's comprehensive income of 56 billion pesos, as last year's results considered the net gain from debt restructuring, which amounted to 73 billion pesos. Consolidated revenues improved by 137% from 59 billion in 2021 to 139 billion in 2022, due to the resumption of commercial operations and the increased demand for air travel as borders in most countries were opened. As flights for both domestic and international became fully operational after the COVID-19 outbreak, total available seat kilometer has reached 34.54 billion in 2022 as against 18.02 billion in 2021, an increase of 92%, with passenger load factor increasing by 29.4 points from 42.6% to 72%. Total number of round trips almost doubled, bringing the full year total to 38,767 round trips. The number of passengers likewise improved from 2.97 million to 9.31 million. Consolidated operating expenses increased by 94% from 63 billion in 2021 to 122 billion in 2022. Out of the 59 billion increase, 39 billion came from flying operations expenses due to higher fuel prices. All other expenses also went up as a result of the increase in operated flights. For the statements of financial position, the company's consolidated total assets as of December 31, 2022 amounted to 206 billion pesos, 6% higher than last year's balance of 194 billion pesos. This was driven by the increases in short-term investments, receivables, deposits, and other prepayments. Consolidated total liabilities increased by 1 billion or 0.6%, mainly due to the increase in unearned transport revenues on account of higher passenger ticket sales. This was offset by the decrease in long-term obligations due to payments made. Consolidated equity increased to 13 billion pesos as of December 31, 2022, from 2 billion as of December 31, 2021. This was brought about by the consolidated net income earned during the year, which is in effect reduced deficit by 28%. For our current performance, for the first quarter of 2023, the company has a very strong operating performance as it reported an unaudited comprehensive income of 5 billion pesos, 4 billion higher than the 1 billion reported for the same quarter in 2022. Consolidated revenues increased to 42 billion pesos, 79% higher than the 24 billion reported in 2022 due to growth in passenger revenues by 120%, as passenger volume increased by 156% and passenger load factor increased to 81% from 54%. Consolidated operating expenses likewise increased by 59%, mainly attributable to rising fuel prices, which increased flying operations by 61%, along with the increase in the number of flights operated. As an update to PAL's restructuring plan, PAL has already issued a letter to the sporting creditors that they will be able to exchange their PAL shares to PAL Holding shares. As approved by your company's board of directors, the exchange ratio between PAL Holdings and PAL is 15.57 PAL Holding shares to 1 PAL share. The process of facilitating the swap of all shares issued to supporting creditors under the debt-to-equity conversion is ongoing. For 2023, PAL has inaugurated a historic Manila-Perth non-stop link while reopening multiple routes between the Philippines and points in mainland China. In addition to an extensive domestic network anchored on its gateway hubs in Manila, Cebu, and Davao, PAL is the only airline operating non-stop flights linking the Philippines to the US and Canada, along with the largest network of flights from Manila to multiple cities in the Middle East, Japan, and Australia. This is aligned to PAL's invitation to travel the world and fly to new discoveries. In behalf of our major shareholders, directors, officers, and staff of your company, thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Lee. Madam Secretary, were there any inquiries received regarding the management report which was circulated to the stockholders?
Mr. Chairman, there were no questions submitted online regarding this matter.
Since there are no questions, let us proceed with the approval of the management report as reflected in the annual report, together with the financial statements of the corporation for the year December 31, 2022. You have just heard the CFO's report on the results of operations as reflected in the corporation's annual report. Copies of the annual report, management report, and the financial statements for the period ending December 31, 2022 were made available to the stockholders via the corporation's website and PSE Edge profile. Madam Secretary, kindly present the proposed resolution for this item and report on the tally of votes for this item in the agenda?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. On the screen is the proposed resolution for this matter. The tally of votes and validated proxies is also on the screen. Based on the total votes received, more than a majority of the stockholders of the corporation present at today's meeting voted in favor of this matter.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. With at least the majority of the stockholders present today at today's meeting voting in favor of this matter, the management report as reflected in the annual report, together with the financial statements for the period ending December 31, 2022 is hereby noted and approved. Madam Secretary, let the minutes reflect the voting on this matter. The next item in the agenda is the ratification of all the acts, resolutions, and transactions of the Board of Directors and Management of the Corporation from the date of the last annual stockholders meeting to the present, as reflected in the minutes of the meetings of the Board of Directors. A summary of the acts, resolutions, and transactions of the Board and Management from the last annual stockholders meeting is contained in Annex C of the information statement. The acts, resolutions, and transactions were discussed and approved in the minutes of the Board and its committees and are covered by minutes which are on file with the Office of the Corporate Secretary. These minutes are available for inspection upon the request of any stockholder. Before we tally the votes on this item, may we know from the Corporate Secretary whether we received any inquiries on this matter?
Mr. Chairman, we have not received any questions regarding this matter.
Since there are no questions received regarding this matter, Madam Secretary, kindly present the proposed resolution for this item and the tally of the votes.
Mr. Chairman, the proposed resolution for this matter is shown on the screen. We have also tallied and validated the following votes cast via proxy and remote communication. Based on the total votes received, more than a majority of the stockholders of the corporation present at today's meeting voted in favor of approving all the legal acts, resolutions, and transactions of the Board of Directors and Management of the corporation from the time of the last annual stockholders meeting on May 26, 2022 up to the present date.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. With at least the majority of the stockholders present at today's meeting voting in favor of this matter, the acts, transactions, and resolutions of the Board of Directors and Management from the date of the last annual stockholders meeting up to the present, as reflected in the minutes of the Board of Directors, are hereby approved, confirmed, and ratified. Madam Secretary, let the minutes reflect the voting on this matter. The next item in the agenda is the election of directors for the year 2023 to 2024. May we request the Corporate Secretary to report on the nominees for directors for 2023 to 2024?
Mr. Chairman, allow me to present the nominees for directors for 2023 to 2024. I am pleased to report that in a meeting held on March 30, 2023, the Nomination and Compensation Committee has approved the nomination of the following 9 individuals as directors of the corporation for the year 2023 to 2024. First, Dr. Lucio C. Tan, Mrs. Carmen K. Tan, Mr. Lucio C. Tan III, Ms. Sheila T. Pascual, Mr. Stanley K. Nang, Mr. Junichiro Miyagawa, Mr. Johnip G. Kua, Mr. Jerome S. Tan, and Mr. Ramon Pancracio D. Dizon. I would like to further report that nominated as independent directors are Mr. Johnip G. Kua, Mr. Jerome S. Tan, and Mr. Ramon Pancracio D. Dizon. The profiles of the nominees are set out in Item 5 of the information statement, while the summary compensation table of the top 4 executive officers, directors, and other officers of the corporation are provided in Item 6 of the information statement. Notwithstanding, in compliance with the requirements of Section 49 of the Revised Corporation Code, allow me to present the individual compensation report of the members of our Board of Directors. Related party transactions and directors' self-dealings are discussed under Item 5E of the Information Statement and Note 18 of the Notes of the Corporation's Consolidated Financial Statements.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Madam Secretary, did we receive any questions on the lineup for nominees of the board?
Mr. Chairman, there were no questions submitted online regarding this matter.
May we now hear a report from the Corporate Secretary regarding the votes on this item in the agenda and the proposed resolution on this?
Mr. Chairman, after tallying the ballots and proxies received, which results are currently flashed on the screen, and considering there are only 9 nominees for the current 9 seats in the board, with each of the nominees having received votes in their names, we would like to report that all the nominees are effectively elected as directors of the corporation for the year 2023 to 2024. The proposed resolution regarding this matter is shown on the screen.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. I hereby declare that the 9 nominees are duly elected as directors of the corporation for the year 2023 to 2024. Madam Secretary, let the minutes reflect the voting on this matter. The next item in the agenda is the ratification of the appointment of the corporation's external auditor. May we request the chairman of the audit committee, Mr. John F. G. Kua, to report on the external auditor appointed for 2023 to 2024 as approved by our audit committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon to all the stockholders present today. By way of a background, I would like to remind our stockholders that the authority to appoint, remove, and replace the external auditor was actually delegated by the stockholders to the Board of Directors at the 2007 Annual Stockholders Meeting. Such delegated authority has not been revoked or withdrawn. In accordance, however, with Recommendation 9.1 of the Code of Corporate Governance for publicly listed corporations, the external auditor appointed by the Board of Directors upon recommendation of the Audit Committee is now presented to the stockholders for ratification. For the record, I would like to cite the criteria that the committee used in endorsing SyCip Gorres Velayo and Company, or SGV and Company, as external auditor. Among others, the committee evaluated the performance of the accounting firm of SGV and Company for the past year and took into account its history of service to the corporation and knowledge of the industry, its auditing skills, and the quality of its audit work, and of course, the reasonableness of its fees compared to other audit firms of the same size and reputation. On that basis, we have endorsed to the board the reappointment of SGV and Company as external auditor of the corporation for the year 2023-2024. The appointment of SGV and Company was approved by the Board of Directors last March 31, 2023, and is now being presented for ratification of the stockholders. We have invited the SGV partner in charge of the corporation's account, Ms. Catherine E. Lopez, to be present at today's meeting to address inquiries, if any.
Thank you, Mr. Kua. We would like to acknowledge the presence of Ms. Catherine E. Lopez at today's meeting. May we inquire from the Corporate Secretary whether there were any questions regarding the nominated external auditor?
Mr. Chairman, there were no questions submitted online regarding this matter.
May we request the Corporate Secretary to present the proposed resolution for this item and report on the tally of votes?
Mr. Chairman, the proposed resolution on the appointment of SGV and Company as external auditor of the corporation for the ensuing year is shown on the screen. The tally of votes and validated proxies for this matter is likewise shown on the screen. Based on the total votes received, more than a majority of the stockholders of the corporation present at today's meeting voted in favor of the confirmation of Sisip Gores Velayo and Company, or SGV and Company, as external auditor of the corporation for the year 2023 to 2024.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. With at least a majority of the stockholders present at today's meeting voting in favor of the matter, the confirmation of the appointment of Sisip Gores Velayo & Co. as external auditor of the corporation for the year 2023 to 2024 is hereby approved. Madam Secretary, let the minutes reflect the voting on this matter. I believe we have discussed all the items in the agenda. May we inquire from the Corporate Secretary if there are any other questions received from the stockholders?
Mr. Chairman, there were no questions submitted online regarding this matter.
Since we have no other matters to discuss at today's meeting, this meeting is hereby adjourned. Thank you to all the stockholders who have taken the time to attend the meeting today.